HR often focuses on exit interviews to understand why employees leave. But what if the conversations that really matter are the ones you have before they think about walking out the door? Welcome to Honest HR, where we turn real issues facing today's HR departments into honest conversations and actionable feedback. I'm your host, Monique Akanbi. Let's get honest. Today, we're diving into one of the most underutilized tools HR teams have for keeping their best people: stay interviews. We'll unpack how to conduct an effective stay interview, how to identify any red flags and subtle signs during these conversations, and what to do to keep an employee once you've identified those issues. Joining us to help answer these questions is Carlin Irvin, Vice President of HR at Chrysalis, a nonprofit organization that helps people navigating barriers at work. Her insightful words about state interviews on LinkedIn caught our eye at Honest HR, even referencing Sherm's own published book, The Power of State Interviews for Engagement and Retention by Richard Finnegan. Carlin, we love how passionate you are about amplifying the importance of these HR topics. Welcome to Honest HR.
Thank you so much, Monique, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, how would you define a state interview?
A stay interview, I would define it as a check in with your employee before they check out of the door of your organization. And what I mean by that, Monique, is it's a proactive conversation that we need to be having with our employees. And it's designed really to find out if your employees are how much engaged they are and if they're gonna ultimately leave your organization. And it's also a good way to show your employees that you hear them and that you see them and that you really value them.
I must confess that when I practiced HR, Carlin, I actually used state interviews and encouraged my people managers to use state interviews as a way to really get insight as it relates to what keeps their employees there. But for our audience, what would you say are unique benefits of a state interview compared to maybe a performance review or at the point when it's too late, an exit interview?
Oh, that's such a great question, Monique. And for your audience, I got to break this down like this because I love to tell the leaders at Chrysalis, listen, state interviews are so important. And the difference between the performance review and a stay interview is the performance review is the how the employee did. It's a look back over a period of time, right? The performance review is measuring the output versus the stay interview. The stay interview is the look ahead. It's really checking the engagement of your employees, it's checking the loyalty of your employees, and it's really checking the pulse. This is an amazing time in stay interviews for HR and management to really collaborate and figure out things that can save your employees from exiting your organization. And to I love to use analogies. So from your audience, imagine when you go to your doctor, right? And you get your annual physical. A performance review is like the blood work that you're going to get. It's measuring your scores. The stay interview is when your doctor checks your heart rate. Is checking to see how lively you are, how your heart is going to continue to beat for the rest of your life. And stay interviews are that vitally important. I'm passionate about them, Monique.
I hear your passion, and I'm never going to go to my annual exam thinking not without thinking about state interviews. Um,
Exactly.
but thank you for that analogy. That was actually a great analogy. You mentioned on LinkedIn that turnover is expensive. And according to this year's Express Employment Professionals Harris Poll survey, it costs businesses about $36,000 annually. And recent SHRM research shows that voluntary turnover remains higher than pre pandemic rates. Why do you think organizations wait until the exit interview to ask those important questions?
Just think about those metrics you just quoted, Monique. It's expensive, right? So organizations, they know this. They're tracking these numbers. That's a big hit to anyone's bottom line. So I think it's a twofold answer to this. Some organizations really don't know about a stay interview. They really haven't been exposed to what a stay interview is. They know about the exit interview, but organizations that know about the stay interview, that choose to just stick with the exit, I think it's a safe bet for organizations, to be honest with you. I think it is a safe, comfortable place to be because the employee is already out the door during the exit. So no change needs to really happen there, even though you should be collecting the exit interview data. But no change really needs to happen. But the real magic happens when you're having a conversation with that employee that is still in within your organization. That takes courage to do for organizations to really have those hard conversations and there to hear the hard truth and then act on the hard truth.
Yeah, if I think back to when I practiced HR and when I introduced state interviews to our management team, right? I had to
Mhm.
share with them, this doesn't have to be anything formal, but I would always often share with my managers, usually when an employee turns in a resignation. That is when everyone jumps into action as it relates to how do we keep them? How do we keep, how can we keep
Mhm.
them? And
Mhm.
I would always say at this point, they've made up their mind, right? And so
Yeah.
thank you
On
for sharing and being honest. It is honest HR as it relates to the work that needs to be done, really, when you
Yes.
start conducting state interviews versus an exit interview, because you have that flexibility of taking action or just collecting that information just for something that you could potentially use in the future. One of the benefits of being a SHRM member is that SHRM has sample state interview questions. This is exclusive to our members, which we've linked on our SHRM podcast webpage. But what would you say are some best practices for conducting state interviews effectively?
Love this question, and for your audience, I love being a SHRM member. Let me just put that out there because I have always used the toolkits that are available to members and all the great jewels and nuggets that are offered to SHRM members for HR professionals. So start there. Start with downloading those bank of state interview questions. And then I would also add, don't treat this as a checklist. Please do not do that because employees are so smart and they see straight through it. Treat it as a conversation. You also want to make sure that you set up a psychologically safe environment for employees because trust is important when you want to gather state interview data. You want to make sure that the environment is psychologically safe for your employees. And you also want to make sure that the interviewer is appropriate. Is the manager really the appropriate person? Or is HR, or should it be a collaboration with HR and the manager? And that really depends on your culture. I would also add that follow up is super important. Please don't just collect the data and sit on
Mhm.
it because that erodes trust as well.
Yeah.
And then you always want to make it a routine. It's not a one and done with stay interviews. It's a continuation. It's a continuous process, and you really should embed it into your HR annual goals, into your organization's strategic plan.
So you said make it conversational. And my mind goes to, well, what does that look like? So for our audience, what would that look like in terms of I have a set of state interview questions that I've downloaded from the SHRM website because I am a SHRM member. And I don't want to use it as a checklist, which is what you warned our audience against. What does that conversation look like?
So you can download the questions, right? But every organization is different. Every culture is different. So sit down with your team, sit down with your management team. That's what we do at Chrysalis. Like, hey guys, let's review these state interview questions. Do they fit well for our organization, right? Do they fit with our values? Do they align with our values? Let's make them our own. Let's make these questions stick to Chrysalis. Let's make the question stick to your organization so that it's not so checklisty. Let's find out, let's do a deep dive. At Chrysalis, we always want to know what will keep you here for the next 5 years, right? That's a unique question that we want to know for our organization because we're trying to track turnover. And that's what you can do to not make it sound so checklist and like, I'm just going through these list of questions. Put put your uniqueness, your organization's uniqueness and culture into those questions.
I love that you called that out and called out following up because I think that that is also very important. What are some important signs from the employee in a state interview that should be considered a concern or a red flag and something to be followed up on after the interview?
Red flags. Red flags. And they come up, right? But this is the best time to capture red flags. To me, red flags are constant complaints about management. And I don't just mean, oh, I hate my manager, but hey, my manager is showing favoritism, or my manager is dumping work on me that should not go to me. A red flag is, I don't feel like I have any growth at this organization, and that needs to be looked into. A siren, let's talk about a siren. I'm entertaining an external job offer. That needs to be addressed immediately. And so, as we are talking about red flags, what we need to also do with them, don't sit on them. Please do not sit on them. What you do is you partner with management and leadership and you come up with a game plan. Because with red flags, you're like, hey, how can we turn these red flags into some green flags, into some wins, right? How can we make sure that we're addressed? Some things might be teeter tottering into compliance area, and you want to make sure that you address them. If somebody is saying there's bias going on, that needs to be addressed.
That ties in nicely with my next question, which is how should HR effectively use the information and the data collected during state interviews? And regardless if it's a potential concern or if it's a siren or a red flag, as you shared, um, what should HR do? I mean, you shared following up, but how does HR take that information that's collected and really put it into action?
Great question. You want to treat what you've collected, this data, as actionable insight. Don't treat it as data, treat it as actionable insight. That's key. And first, what you first want to do is when you're observing your data, the HR team, you want to track trends and patterns. That's what we do at Chrysalis. We look at trends and patterns. If one person has said something that's unique, you want to capture that. But you really want to look for multiple employees saying some of the same trends and patterns. Like, hey, there's no upward mobility here. Or I feel like there's bias on my team, or there's favoritism going on. Those are systemic just issues that need to be addressed within the organization. And then you want to gather this data. You can gather the data and then you share it with your leadership team and with management. And you break the data down and then you show them, hey, here's the red flags, because you want to address the red flags and you want to show the trends in the red flags. But then what I love to do and what we love to do at Chrysalis, we love to show also to the wins. Where are we winning in this organization? Where are we really doing well? Where are we excelling? Where are the areas where we are really shining? Because we want to highlight those areas too. And you can put that in report format. Sometimes we like to break the data down by department,
Mhm.
by demographics. You know, we have a lot of Gen Z and millennials that work at Chrysalis. Their voice really matters. They want to be heard, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so you can break that data down too by demographics. You can break it down by department, but keep people's anonymity. You know, keep that anonymous. Don't divulge who said what, but you can break down that. So you want to break down your wins, break down the red flags, and then have an action items. Like, what action items can we do? What can we do? What are some low hanging fruits? What are some levers that we can pull at our organization to show staff that we hear you, we're listening, and to reduce your turnover because you don't want them to leave? It's expensive.
Right. So some HR professionals may have questions about state interviews that they may hesitate to bring up. And these are the kind of things that can feel awkward or even risky to say out loud. But if we don't surface them, we miss the chance to make these valuable opportunities more effective and ultimately authentic. So let's tackle a couple of questions that are uncomfortable, but let's tackle them head on. So, question for you: what if an employee shares in the state interview that they're already interviewing elsewhere? And I know you mentioned that, but what if I'm a manager and I had an employee share that? What do I do?
First advice to your audience, please do not panic. Do not panic. This is why you're doing the stay interview. You're gathering intel, you're gathering intelligence. This is really good data, right? That you want to hear in that stay interview. So don't panic. You want to gather the data. And then if they tell you that, that's your opportunity to ask a follow-up question. That's why it cannot be a checklist. It has to be a conversation. You want to ask that follow-up question. Well, why are you looking elsewhere? Why do you have that job offer? What is going on, right? You can find out, is it culture? Is it pay? Right? Is it that you don't feel like you're going to grow at this organization? And then you take that information, and I'm going to repeat it again, do not sit on this information. Please don't do that. You take it to management. You take it to that manager, and you come up with a game plan to either mitigate the risk of that employee walking out the door. That's A, that's your first strategy. Or B, what you can do with that information is you can come up with a succession plan.
So trust is important, Carlin, right? How do you get honest answers if employees don't fully trust either their manager or HR?
So trust has to be earned. I'm a big believer in that, and I
Mhm.
say it all the time. At our organization at Chrysalis, we are about building trust. You have to build trust. And if trust has been eroded, right, with HR or with management, which a lot of the times that does happen at organizations, it's the people against management or the leaders in the organization. It has to be built. And so, going back to your question about what are some best practices to do stay interviews? What's the best person to do the interview? Who does the employee trust the most? And you have to do that level of fact finding. Find out, who does the employee trust the most? Is it HR? Is it, I know on my team, certain members of staff are like, well, I don't want this person. I want that person in HR. Whoever the employee feels most comfortable with, it might be a manager, it might be someone else that is in management level on their team. Get that person to do the stay interview. But how you need to build back up the trust is you need to follow up. You need to have those action items, and you need to close the loop with employees. Closing the loop is everything, Monique. It tells your employees once again that we hear you, we see you. Employees so many times when they're exiting an organization and you're gathering that exit interview data, which at that point is too late, they'll say, I didn't feel heard or I didn't feel valued. Well, here's your time during the stay interview to let them know that we hear you, we see you, and we value you. And when employees continuously hear that and see that, and you're walking the walk and not just talking the talk, then that'll build the trust.
So, Carney, you mentioned taking the state interview questions and customizing them to the culture of the organization, or identifying which questions work for the organization. What should an HR professional do if they ask the question, "What would make you leave?" and the answer is unrealistic or can't be changed, right? Such as a salary cap. How should HR pros respond to that?
That happens so often, like, I need to make more money or I really it's just not gonna work for me financially. What HR professionals should do, go a layer deeper, find out other things that would make them happy because you will find out that employees, they do leave organizations because of salary and because of finances, but there are other things that you can pull those levers, that low-hanging fruit for staff that will keep them engaged. It might be a mentorship program, which we started at Chrysalis. Staff will tell you what they want. We just got to be able to
Yeah.
listen, and then act on what they want and then be able to pull those levers, and then you can say, "We've done our best to retain and keep this employee."
I love the follow-up and closing the loop, even
Yes.
if it is something that, is not doable, but I also enjoy that you shared kind of identifying, although the response was this, how do we are there other low-hanging fruit that we can address that would mitigate action on the employee's response? So, I am gonna play a little game with you. We're gonna do some role playing, and so I'll ask you a question as an HR professional, and you will give me 2 kinds of rapid fire answers, as the employee. So one of your responses would be, signaling that everything is peachy, and one would signal as that red flag or that siren, as you indicated as well. That should be something that's marked for follow-up. Sounds good?
Sounds amazing. I love
Okay.
games. Let's go,
I know, me
Monique.
too. So, Carlin, what do you look forward to most when you come to work?
Well, I look forward to teamwork, collaboration with my team is everything to me. I love community. I love the fact that I can come to work and work with people that are here for the mission just like I am. It just excites me every single day.
So that sounds like a great green flag answer. What's your red flag?
My red flags answer would be absolutely nothing. I look forward to nothing coming to work but my paycheck.
And so how should an HR professional or manager respond to that response?
So once they collect that data, and then I would have the manager follow up and close the loop with that employee and fact find and say, hey, what's going on? Why do you feel like you're not making enough? What do you feel like we need to do to retain you? If we know in the budget we cannot pay you more and your pay is your pay, what about some development? Let's talk about a development plan for you. Let's talk about a development strategy. Let's send you to a conference. Let's pump all the resources and development and training into this employee. So while you're retaining them, you're giving them what they need.
Great response. So thank you for sharing that. Alrighty, next question. Carlin, what would make your job easier?
Monique, what would make my job easier is clearer processes, I think that we need to do more SOPs on our new projects and on our new policies that we're bringing on board to the organization. And that would really, really help me make my job a lot more easier to do.
Okay, awesome. Now, what's your red flag answer, Carlin?
Monique, my manager dumps all of their work on me. And it's to the point to I can't even do my work. I have no bandwidth and I'm drowning.
So, how do you follow up to that response?
You follow up to that response with partnering with the manager. Let's sit down with the employee. Let's talk about their workload. This should be happening, by the way, during your check ins, like your one on ones. Should be finding out what is your workload? What can we do to mitigate your workload? And if we find in HR that management is really dumping the workload on the employee, let's have that conversation with management. What's going on with you? Are you stressed out? Are you at your capacity? So it would be great for HR, executives if they hear those red flags to really fact find and do a deep dive and find out why are you overloaded and try to distribute some of that work. That's like an SOS that needs to be taken care of immediately. And if it's happening at the management level, then it needs to happen from the top down.
So, I'm having way too much fun with this role play. So, one more, one more question, Carlin. What might tempt you to leave?
Right now, I am happy. I feel valued. I feel like I have growth at the organization. I would like more development in my field and to really be certified in my area, but I am not actively looking. I feel like I'm thriving right now in my role.
That is great to hear. And what's your red flag response?
If I don't get a raise or a promotion, my resume is ready and on the way out the door.
How do HR professionals or managers follow up to that type of response?
Follow up to that, find out what is wrong, find out is it the salary, and again, find those levers, find the low-hanging fruit where you can do development for that employee, get that employee mentor, find a mentor internally within the organization. If it's coaching, find that, but come up with an action plan to save the employee from exiting.
Thank you so much, Carlin. Giving specific examples really helps bring these concepts to life and makes it easier for our audience to apply them in their own work. I'm a visual person, so that's probably where the excitement came from because it was practice in action, right? Being able to role model or role play responses and what someone should do in terms of following up. So I have one more question for you. What should HR professionals do if their organization doesn't use state interviews, but HR wants to start?
Amazing final question, Monique. And for your audience, start small. That's my advice. Start small and start with pilot a department. That's what I did when we introduced them at Chrysalis a few years ago and we were trying to work on turnover. We partnered with a department that was willing and able to do this. They were excited about it. And we started with one department. So pilot a department, gather the data, gather the wins, gather the red flags that you learned from the small piloting of the department. And then together with management of that department, come up with your action items. You don't have to start big. You don't even have to have 10 action items. If you have two, start with two, but get those small wins so that you can start tracking your retention and your turnover because those things truly matter. And you can be the spark in your organization.
Well, I love that you shared piloting, because that's actually what I did when I introduced the interviews was I identified a specific department and it allowed us to adjust and make modifications so that way, before we rolled it out to the rest of the organization, we felt pretty comfortable with the model that we developed utilizing the questions from state interviews. Well, Carlin, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking your time to share your expertise and your thoughtful perspectives with us today.
Thank you, Monique. This was so much fun, and I just had a ball sharing with you the importance of stay interviews. Remember, it is vitally important to retain your staff, and the best way to do it is introduce a stay interview. So, thank you so much.
Well, your passion for state interviews is very evident. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Honest HR. We'll catch you next time. Hello, friends. We hope this week's episode gave you the candid tips and insights you need to keep growing and thriving in your career. Honest HR is part of HR Daily, the content series from SHRM that delivers a daily newsletter directly to your inbox, filled with all the latest HR news and research. Sign up at shrm.org/HR Daily. Plus, follow SHRM on social media for even more clips and stories. Like, share, and add to the comments. Because real change starts with real talk.
SHRM.
This podcast is approved for point 0.5 professional development credits, aka PDCs, toward SHRM CP and SHRM SCP recertification. Enter the following PDC activity ID in your SHRM activity portal to log your credit. 26-TY65M. That's 26-TY65M. This ID expires on October 1st, 2026.